speaking of evil commies, let's go to AOC. We've got AOC here in a clip where she was asked by Julian Andrione from Dropsite News.
Shout out to Julian. Yep, friend of the show, Julian, Dropsite Capitol Hill reporter.
And she was asked about the race between Shaikat Chakrabarti and Scott Wiener in California.
Shaikat, obviously your chief of staff, former chief of staff, is running in San Francisco. That primary is in June. Obviously, you're not going to have a reporter tell you to endorse, but like, is that something are you at least monitoring the race, looking at it? I mean, what's your stance on Shaikat? Because like, you have a close relationship.
I think for me overall, it's more about, I'm trying to think about the role that I am trying to play more broadly in these things. You know, we've got 435 seats in Congress, right? And there is this kind of moment where it's like and not just with this race, but with any race, once you go in, then it's like, what about this? What about this? What about this one? And I'm one person with, you know, a pretty amazing crack, but also lean team. And so we're thinking about kind of like how much of myself I'm pouring into this and how much of myself we want to make sure that we're, you know, pouring into the task at hand, like, you know, what we've got going on here. So, but I think that what I will say is that I think that the primary environment that we're seeing is really great. I think that progressives have already notched some really impressive victories this early into the primary season. And we've got another, 6 or 7 months of it to go. And I'm looking forward to having a lot of new colleagues here in November that we can, you know, it's been a really lonely road for the first 8 years. And I'm really hoping that it'll be a little less lonely in November.
My boss has
Emily, your face.
Well, so for context, Julian's like 6'5". He's literally a giant. So that's why AOC is
important context for audio only listeners. Yes.
Yes. But I mean, you guys can cook on this. I'll let you guys go off, but that's a little bit of cope. A little bit
Krystal,
of,
they were like former allies, right?
He was her chief of staff. I mean, he was with her during her upset campaign where, you know, almost no one thought she would win. And then Ryan has done the reporting. I don't think anyone clearly, like, listen, I'm reading into this. She's got some sort of a personal issue with him because otherwise, this is your former chief of staff. There is another progressive in the race, but he is the one that, according to the polls, has the actual chance to win. He is part of your ideological project and movement. He's up against the state senator, Scott Wiener, who is generally progressive except Palestine. He's tried to reposition himself, recognizing where the base of the party is. But it's very clear Shaikat is the left-wing candidate with the best shot to win. And not only does she not endorse him, she doesn't say a single thing about him. Nothing, no kind words. No, I think he's a great progressive, but I'm just no. So she clearly has some sort of a personal beef and is allowing that to cloud her commitment to a broader movement. So she says in that, like, I'm trying to figure out what kind of role I'm going to play. It's like, lady, I thought you were trying to play the role of a progressive leader. So, you know, if you're trying to do that, then whatever your hurt feelings are, whatever happened in the past, you put that aside. Because you're supposed to be helping to get these candidates in so you're not so lonely in Congress anymore. I mean, the whole thing, everything about it is cope and nonsense too. Because she also does this thing like, oh, our staff is so lean, blah, blah, blah. There's plenty of other people out there who manage to make endorsements and, you know, serve in Congress, and it's not that hard. And you yourself have made other endorsements. So it's not like you're waiting to rip the Band-Aid off, you know? So I don't know. I just look at this. And it's not honest, number one. It's not direct. None of it makes sense. This does not appear to me someone who is comfortable or truly desires to be in a leadership role. And so it's just honestly, very sad to me because she has so much potential to be such an important force right now at a time when the political project that she has been a very important part of is taking flight. Does have this momentum. Ana Lilia Mejia won overwhelmingly in New Jersey last night. That's awesome. By the way, AOC managed to endorse her without a problem, without it stretching her too thin or whatever. But in any case, right at the moment when she could really be pushing the ball forward, she's so reticent. And, I feel like, and not to over psychologize her, but she's taken so much criticism from the right. She's taken criticism from the left, from myself included, because I do hold her to a higher standard as someone who wants to position herself as the vanguard of the left. I expect her to be occupying that space. And there have been instances where she has not. And in response to that criticism, rather than going out there and making her case and kind of doing battle, she's withdrawn. She doesn't go on shows like ours, and not just ours. She doesn't go on, she'll occasionally go on with Hassan. Maybe she's gone on Majority Report once.
She'll go on Hassan for she'll go on Hassan for 4 minutes, right? Like these aren't even like long sit downs, and that is
4 hours.
That is kind of the interesting thing about, I guess, AOC's theory of media, which is to do Instagram videos, to have complete control, right? Do your stories, do your Instagram lives, and have complete control of your media message. Do a quick snippet to a news camera outside the Capitol or whatever, and sort of have a full control there. We came out of 2024, which was the podcast election, or that's how people refer to it. It was really 4 guys. It was Schultz, Theo Von, Rogan, Tim Dillon. Maybe
Lex.
Lex has kind of disappeared a little bit. Now
this is Nelk Boys erasure.
I'm so sorry. Yeah, it's the Nelk Boys. We can add them, but those were the 4 horsemen of the podcast election. Maybe 2028, maybe they aren't the 4 horsemen. Maybe they actually don't have as much sway in 2028. Who's to say there? But I do think it's clear that, can you imagine AOC doing a 2-hour podcast anywhere right now? I do think it's a weakness for her.
Yeah.
But I guess her theory of the case is maybe she doesn't have to do them. Maybe she can just stay on Instagram, stay on these places, not have to sit down for a long time with anyone.
Didn't we already learn that that's not the case with Kamala Harris? Didn't we already find this out? And even if, let's say that general media theory is correct, that she can do her own media and she's a big enough star that people will come to her and see what she has to offer. Number one, I think Zoran's content is vastly more polished and effective than hers. I haven't seen anything she's put out that is hit anywhere close to what his, billionaire tax video, or even his halal cart video, or any of those, right? So that's number one. I don't even think that she's doing a particularly good job, if that's the theory. But number two, remember when she went to the Munich security conference? And she kind of fell flat on her face. Even bad. People who want to defend her had to admit that it wasn't exactly a polished presentation. And I personally had some issues with the ideological content of the answers as well. Well, that doesn't come out of nowhere. That's because she's not putting in reps. Yeah. If you're not facing hostile questioning, if you're not having to deal with the questions that people have, you're not going to be good at it. No matter, I don't care how talented you are.
It was like Tim Walz.
It requires practice.
It was like Tim Walz. JD was going on all of the shows. JD was getting his reps in, and then you go to the VP debate. Tim Walz, all Tim Walz was doing was eating corn dogs at the county fair and hiding from reporters. And then you go to the VP debate, and he gets walloped by Vance, who Vance started out not that great on camera. We interviewed Vance before he was the nominee, and he was far less talented back then. I mean, you can say what you want about him right now if you don't feel he's talented currently, but he did put in reps. He got better.
So Walz would go on really, really gentle, dad podcasts and that type of thing. That's actually a really good point about the media. When you're in an environment, you can study all you want, but when it actually is you're at the Munich security conference and people are asking you about Taiwan, you can tell that she sort of freezes because she's trying to bring up the points that she's studied for, which is what all politicians do. But that's very interesting. And it also, the thing that stuck with me from what you guys have been talking about, because from the outside, I disagree a little bit. And again, I'm observing this from the outside. I think she's actually I think there's a chance that we look at this 10 years from now and we're she played it pretty cleverly. I think her relationship with Nancy Pelosi, which I wonder if that's involved in the Scott Wiener situation,
probably
I think she was fairly clever about that, because when I look back at the trajectory of the left since she won and galvanized candidates around the country and the broader movement, it's been on the up. The question is, I think the point that you guys are both raising, is she up to be a leader of that movement? She obviously wants to be a leader of that movement. But when you look at this answer to Julian, that is not the statement of a leader. When you look at the performance at Munich, that is not the performance of a leader, somebody with the capacity to really take the helm of the movement from Bernie, who clearly wants to appoint AOC the heir. Their Fighting Oligarchy tour was a massive runaway success. Could she have done that on her own or with another person that she chooses in the future to go on a sort of tour with? Is she exhibiting like really the capacity to be a leader? I think that is the point that you guys are hitting on that really resonates. That's very, very interesting.
Yeah. And Emily, to your point, and I've been thinking about this lately, you know, the disappointments of the left in the squad, which really, you know, kind of AOC is seen as the leader of, and she comes in with all this fanfare and knocks off this Joe Crowley who, you know, came out of nowhere, and there's all this post-2016 excitement. The reality is the left is very weak, right? No institutional backing, public still very much in love with the Democratic establishment leadership, in love with MSNBC in terms of the Democratic base, et cetera. And so it was, perhaps it was a savvy calculation. I still don't totally agree, but I can see why the calculation was made. Look, we just don't have the institutional support to do this renegade thing right now. So I need to get what I can from leadership, right? We're in a different moment now. The base of the party's with us. They're not with Nancy Pelosi. They're certainly not with Chuck Schumer. They're certainly not with Hakeem Jeffries. It's a different moment now. And the institutional power needs to be built. She could be an important part of building that. As far as I can tell, she is not doing that. And she's very reluctant to do that. And so to see her there saying, I don't really know what my role is. It's like, okay, well then, you know, don't pretend like we should all defer to you as some leader of the progressive movement, or take seriously a presidential bid if you don't even know yourself if that's the role that you want to fill. And I just look at, we've had huge energy and outrage on the left over ICE. We've had, a massive national conversation about the Epstein class and the Epstein files. We're at war with Iran right now. And on all of these things, she will take the correct positions, right? She'll vote the right way. But is she the one leading the charge? Post the Fight Oligarchy tour, I have not seen it. And so, when she says, I'm not sure what role, I think that's actually very revealing that she is not secure in the role that she wants to fill. And if you want to be that person who is out front, you really do need to go into some spaces that are going to be uncomfortable, and be unafraid of making your case, and be unafraid of, look, yeah, of course, if you're going to be a very visible leader, you are going to take incoming. That is the nature of the deal. And it may not always be fair. And that has certainly been the case for her. And, the way she's been sexualized, all of that stuff is disgusting. But you have to be prepared that you're going to take incoming. And then you can, play it like Zoran does and provoke the fights you want to provoke, and help guide and take the incoming you want to take, so that you're driving the narrative. But instead, I feel like she turtles and has just become increasingly insular. And that's, it's not going to serve anyone. So anyway, I find this whole thing very frustrating and just so lame. Like, it's just so dishonest too. Like, if you've got, at least have the respect to say, listen, we had some issues in the office. I'm not sure. Okay, at least I can deal with that. But to pretend to not even say his name, to pretend like, oh, this is about some other higher minded principle. It's like, this is just all total spin and nonsense, and everyone can see through it.
It definitely felt Kamala-y, where it's like, you're going to get these questions. Like, you should have something to say, even if it's something that we disagree with. But she is, the last thing I'll say positively for AOC is, I do think she would be the only 2028 candidate to actually unite liberals and the left. Whereas I feel like every other candidate, there'd be a lot of schisms between. But I do think most leftists would probably come over to her. I don't think that they're as critical as potentially we are on this show of her. I do think there's still a lot of good feelings for AOC. And I do also feel like liberals would trust her. Do you disagree, Emily?
No, I mean, I just am thinking about like how Glenn has covered AOC, which is, I think, appropriately critical, and how we've covered her, which I think has been totally fair. And I wonder how that trickles into like the average kind of leftist base Democratic voter in a primary. So I don't know. It's an interesting point. I think, it depends on who you're running against, because if you're running against Kamala Harris, then it's easy to consolidate people in support of AOC.
I mean, I would just say, I think you're right about that, Griffin. I think she is broadly popular, right? I think she's broadly one of the most popular figures in the Democratic Party right now. I don't think there's any doubt about that. Can you imagine her holding up on a debate stage? I mean, I can't, and so the Kamala Harris came into the 2020 primary with a head of steam and with that same position. And people thought, okay, she's for Medicare for all, and maybe she can bridge these divides, and she's got this incredible resume, blah, blah, blah. And then she had one great debate performance. What was it? Her tagline, like, that little girl was me. It really did in the moment, like her polls went up and people were responding to it, blah, blah, blah. And then after that, she just kind of crumbled. And people, as they watched her under that scrutiny, were like, I can't really see it. And so it's hard for me to imagine. I'm sorry. I hate to be so brutal, but it is hard for me to imagine AOC, because she hasn't put in the time and the reps really holding up under that scrutiny. And the few glimpses we've gotten of her under pressure have not been great. So it makes me very skeptical of her chances, and even really her desire to put herself into that role. I mean, I think that's a part of what else is going on here. She may herself be kind of reluctant, and you got a staff around you saying, oh, you've got this favorability, you've got this name recognition, and you're Bernie's heir, and blah, blah, blah. And so she's being pulled in this direction. But I'm not sure that she's entirely comfortable with it at this point. Maybe part of what we're getting as well.
Hey, if you like that video, hit the like button or leave a comment below. It really helps get the show to more people.
And if you'd like to get the full show ad-free and in your inbox every morning, you can sign up at breakingpoints.com.
That's right. Get the full show, help support the future of independent media at breakingpoints.com.